And welcome back, everybody. Fantasy Flight Games have released some initial teasers for Legends of the Force. So I'm going to go through absolutely everything that they kind of talked about in their streams, what they've shown, and what they did on their article. I'm going to make some predictions at the end based on some artwork that we've seen from Prizing from the Galactic Championship and stuff that they showed on video. So let's start off with something that's really cool. There are no 30 HP bases in this set. They did say that there's going to be rare bases, but every color has a common base that is 28 HP. Every common base, they said, is going to have the same text. And that is, when a friendly force unit attacks, the force is with you, and it allows you to create this force token. And this force token is essentially like an on or off switch. You can't ever have more than one, and you start the game without it. So essentially, you're going to have to find some way to get a force token, and then you would like flip it up or denote that you have the force. And then it's like an extra resource that you can use to make certain units trigger their abilities. And we'll see some of that in the card spoilers that they showed. And they also mentioned that the rare bases, they have a different way of gaining force, but it's going to represent the color that that base is associated with. So like maybe the vigilance one is going to say something along the lines of, whenever you heal damage from a unit or a base, the force is with you. Something like that. They released a new keyword, which is hidden. And what's really cool is they said that this is an evergreen keyword, which means it's going to keep coming back. And I think that's a really cool thing to do because it means that they're open for good mechanics to come back. So what is hidden? It's like kind of like a when played ability. So when you play the unit, that phase, it can no longer be attacked. It can still be targeted by spells. It can still be targeted by other when played effects. So if you have something like ISB agent, you can still ping it, but you can't like ambush into it or assign an attack into it. It's a defensive keyword. So it's really cool. And I've seen this in other games that I played. In Hearthstone, we had something called Stealth, which functioned similar to this. It wasn't quite this. That mechanic never was like game breaking, but it was interesting. And I think this is also interesting. But what kind of worries me here is that they said only aggression, command, and cunning are going to have access to hidden. And that is because vigilance has shields. So they don't need hidden. So they're basically saying that if vigilance has shields, well, that is their like defensive keyword. And all of these other colors get a different defensive keyword, which would be all fine and good. Except cunning already has a significant amount of shields. So I went through and I counted all of the shielded units in both cunning and vigilance. Cunning has 10, vigilance has 14. Unless they mean this is either going forward. I also didn't count events that grant shields or units that grant shields. I just think that saying cunning doesn't have access to shielded units is kind of a mistake to say. And once again, cunning, it seems like cunning is getting everything, while all the other colors are kind of just like getting the scraps. Now, they also said that lightsabers are going to be a big part of this set. And they said that creatures are a sub-theme of this set. And there are a few cards that call out the creature type specifically, which is cool. Also, now and going forward, they said all force units are going to have this little symbol behind their text box. That is just denoting that it's a force unit. And it's kind of like reminder text, but in picture form, to know that if you attack with it and you have one of these 28 HP bases, that you like generate the force token. So I think that's cool. And it also might mean that the force token going forward could also be evergreen, because they were talking about on old force reprints and all force units going forward, it's going to have this picture behind the text box. They said that more than 3 eras will be represented in this set. And if I had to make a bet, I'm probably going to say the 4th era is probably High Republic. I feel like they'd maybe hype up the Old Republic, because I know everybody, including myself, really want Old Republic and other eras to be shown. But they specifically didn't say that. Maybe there is more than 4. All they said specifically was there's more than 3 eras going to be represented. Maybe it's going to be more than 3. Maybe it's going to be more than 4. Maybe it's going to be 5 or 6. I don't know. We have to wait to find out. They also mentioned that all leaders are force traded, but not all are going to use force tokens. However, the leaders that do use the force tokens, typically on their leader side, it costs using the force token. But when it's deployed, it is essentially like an on attack ability, or when this unit completes an attack ability. So you can use your force tokens elsewhere And even if you're running one of these 28 HP bases, if you attack with your leader, you generate a force token. Which means that maybe even deploying leaders are even stronger now, since it allows you to use force elsewhere while also generating force, which is cool. They specifically said they wanted to make ground units more durable. And they stated that a lot of 2-drops are going to be around the 2-4 stat line, which I think is actually going to be a pretty earth-shattering for the meta. I know that we've already seen R2-D2 with a 2-4 stat line, and he hasn't really like taken over the meta, but I feel like that's because he doesn't fit in a lot of the best yellow-white strategies, which are more ping strategies, or like Han's I'm just going to play a 3-cost unit on turn 1 strategy. But I think 2-4s are a big deal because we really only have 3 attack turn 1 units, which means that your turn 1 players are going to be harder to remove for anything but control, and it might mean that we can actually have some units survive longer. And they also did say, speaking of R2-D2, every color combination gets a pseudo 2-4 stat line, so it might mean that they're not all 2-4, but like maybe it's like a 1-4 raid 1 stat line. But Yellow Hero is not going to get it because they already have R2-D2. They also said, and I quote, a full cycle of lightsabers in all colors. So that is all like the stuff that was said. So now let's get into the actual cards shown. Our first card is the villain leader of the Spotlight deck, and he is Darth Maul. His leader ability is Action, Exhaust, and Use the Force. Deal 1 damage to a unit and 1 damage to a different unit. He deploys on 6 resources as a 5/6. Now, they made a mention here that if you have a friendly unit and your opponent only has 1 unit, you would need to deal damage to both your own unit and the enemy's. But they've given him some tools that if a unit is damaged, they get a benefit. It could also be a benefit, like if you're damaging your own stuff with Maul. And then when he flips as a 6/5/6, he's a Force Sith. This is where they were highlighting now his ability is an on-attack ability, and you don't have to use the Force to get it. But if you're still running the 28 HP base, you generate Force tokens, you get to use that elsewhere, and Darth Maul still gets his ability. So that's why I think the Force could actually be like pretty cool in the set. And the other thing I want to mention here with like the Force tokens being used as part of the cost of a leader ability, I'm hoping that for this set, the Force mechanic, the use the Force mechanic, kind of replaces the +1 resource mechanic that we've seen in the past. In my mind, I think cards will be a lot more balanced and stronger. And I want you to look at like Fennec here. Fennec was you had to pay 1 extra resource to give a unit ambush. I'm hoping that what they do is instead of paying the 1 resource for this set, it's like exhaust and use the Force to give a unit ambush. That way you can kind of set up a big turn, but you can still play like the units on curve. You just had to plan for it accordingly. I think that would be a lot cooler, a lot more thematic, and even a lot more interesting than what we've seen in the past. So I just wanted to throw that out there as like a possible prediction / hope that that's what they do here. Now let's look at some supporting cards that he has. So I'm going to show all 5 on screen that they showed. The first one is Drain Essence. You get to deal 2 damage to a unit, and the Force is with you, so you get to create a Force token. Now this is cool because you get to actually create the Force without using one of these 28 HP bases or a rare base. So if they print enough of these cards that are like early on, create the Force token, and then you want to play like a big bomb, like as you can see all the way on the right, Darth Sidious or Savage Operas, you just generate the Force token once at the beginning of the game, hold on to it all the way till you need to drop a bomb like Darth Sidious, and you don't even need to run like a 28 HP base. So I like stuff like this, and I hope they print more of this. Then you have Darth Maul's Lightsaber, which is a when played, if attached unit is Darth Maul, you may attack with him. For this attack, he gains Overwhelm, but it can't attack a base. The idea here is that you would run him into like a 1 health unit to get the Overwhelm damage. What also I want to highlight here is this only works with units called Darth Maul. So the Maul from Shadows of the Galaxy does not get the benefit of the when played because he's not named specifically Darth Maul. You have the Scimitar, which is a 4-cost 3/4 ship. While the unit is damaged, it gets +3/+0. So this is one of the highlight cards that if you damage it, it's essentially a 6/3 for turn 4, which is like a big boy in space. Then you have Savage, a 9/6 for 6 Force Knight. And I think the Knight trait might actually be relevant coming up. And he has Overwhelm. When played, when defeated, you may use the Force. If you don't, you deal 9 damage to your own base. Now, this could be really cool. We've seen with Wrecker that if you ECL out something that has Overwhelm at 6, that has a lot of attack, it's like surprise burn damage from hand. And if you're running an aggro deck, sometimes you don't care about dealing 9 damage to your own base, or even, 18 damage if you don't ever have the force. But it can be mitigated. But you don't care about self damage because you're just going to overwhelm your opponent and defeat them early. So this card could be nuts in a villain aggro deck if that exists as like your top end, like it is in Sabine right now. And then, like I mentioned, we have Darth Sidious, who's an 8 cost, 6/8 Separatist Force Sith unit with Restore 2. And then he has a when played effect, you may use the Force if you do defeat each non-Sith unit with 3 or less HP remaining. So this is kind of like a super mode of Vigilance, and it also has the healing, and it also has a body. The only problem is, if your opponent is running a Sith deck, they are like immune to Sidious, but I don't know how relevant that's going to be. It also defeats your own units, but if you're running a control deck, maybe you don't have any other units that would fit this criteria. But it's cool. You know that I'm currently running Palpatine Blue. Well, what if you switch Palpatine Blue to Count Dooku Blue? Then you can run Darth Sidious and play this at 6 with Exploit since it's a Separatist. Cool cards for the villainy side. Let's look at the Heroism side. Finally, Qui-Gon's introduced into the game. And he's got the action, Use the Force. You get to return a friendly non-leader unit to its owner's hand. And then you get to play a non-villain unit that costs less than the returned unit from your hand for free. And he deploys on 6 as a 4/7. And then when he's deployed, you also get you lose the having to use the Force. But instead of an on-attack ability, it's when this unit completes an attack. So I think Qui-Gon is really nuts. You essentially get to like go down the curve and you get to do some crazy stuff. Like already, you could basically play Ahsoka, get the discard, and then you use the Force to return Ahsoka back to your hand, and then play Bodhi, and you get like a double discard. You still get a body. Yes, it's worse than Ahsoka, but you don't lose a card. You get the 2 when played that you should really only like can afford 1. I don't know. I think that there's a lot of really cool things that Qui-Gon's going to enable. And we've seen that yellow hero is a good color, and maybe he'll run something not red or not double cunning. Maybe he'll run something else with good when played effects. I'm super excited about Qui-Gon. And one thing I want to highlight here, I don't know if they're just trying to limit the villain out of aspect, but the fact that it says non-villain unit, I'm curious if that means that maybe we're going to get like a villain base or something in this set. It could just be me coping, but I'm interested. I could just be coping. It could just be them saying like, we really don't want you to get villain when played twice and completely brick this. Something like if you run this as a control green deck, they don't want you being able to like double play Devastators or something crazy. So I don't know. Anyway, Qui-Gon Jinn is a really cool leader. Let's look at his supporting cards. So we have the first hidden card. It's Anakin Skywalker, a 1 cost 1/1 Force Fringe, hidden shielded. Now I think this is really cool because if you're running something like Rey, then this is a 2 cost 2/2 hidden shielded. It's essentially Crafty Smuggler or L337, and it's just hidden as well. So you can't even like get ambushed to pop the shield. If you play it later on, you can still buff it. So I think this is cool. I think the hidden keyword is going to be cool. I really wish Cunning wasn't getting it, but that's beside the point. Refugee of the Path. It's a 1 cost 0/3 Force Fringe. When played, you may give a shield token to a unit with Sentinel. This is really cool as well. I think, I don't know if this deck is a real thing, but like in Chewbacca, you could play this and it could be a 0/3 shielded unit because you would play it. The turn you played, it gets Sentinel, and then it could give shielded to itself. And then if you're playing like a Force deck with Chewbacca, you would then be able to like attack for 0, but you would still generate the Force token because a Force unit attacked. I don't know if that's going to be good. It's just something that could happen. And also like giving shield tokens to Sentinels, as we see in like the Luke Skywalker decks, it's a big deal. Obi-Wan Kenobi is a 3 cost 3/5 Force Jedi Republic with Sentinel, like a conditional Sentinel, but he gets it on the turn you play it. And then every time you play a Force unit, it also gains Sentinel for this phase. So it's, as long as you're running a Force deck, it's a 3/5 Sentinel. 2 things I want to note about this. One of the things, it kind of worries me that the devs said they thought the last time that there was a 3 cost 3/5 unit was Boba Fett from set 1, when we've had 4 other 3/5 units that were introduced in Shadows of the Galaxy. That's Cassian, DJ, Liberated Slaves, and Toro Calican. So a little bit worrying that they thought that those weren't 3/5s or something like that, especially because DJ's running rampant and people are hoping he gets banned. So how are the designers not even knowing what his stats are? But that's neither here nor there. And then the last thing I want to say is with Obi-Wan Kenobi, this leaves only one color combination that does not have access to a 3-cost 3/5. And unfortunately, that is my favorite color combination in Blue Hero. Slightly upsetting, but we'll manage. I think Obi-Wan Kenobi is awesome. You have Qui-Gon Jinn's Aether Sprite, which is a 5-cost 3/6 Jedi Republic vehicle fighter with the on-attack ability. The next time you use a when-played ability this phase, you may use that ability again. And what's so nuts about this, and it's specifically shown in the rules under the when played section, things like when played using smuggle is a when played ability. So in Han 1, you could, use Han's ability on turn 3 to get 5 resources and play this out. On the next turn, which would be Han's flip turn, you attack with Qui-Gon Jinn's Aether Sprite, and then you do your double Han ability where you put 1 resource down, flip Han, attack with Han, and then you DJ somebody. You get to trigger that DJ effect 2 times, and then you get to steal 2 of your opponent's resources. And since it's also Han's double ramp turn, you get to blow up both of the resources you just took from your opponent. So they made this interaction even better. Now, how likely is that to occur? Because it's over 2 turns. If you can't respond to either Qui-Gon Jinn's Aether Sprite or DJ, you were probably going to lose anyway. I think it's a big issue, which leads me to believe that maybe they're going to do something about DJ before this set is released, because I don't think Han 1 needs new tools. Anyway, I think that card's nuts. Even outside of Han, being able to double when played abilities is going to be really nice. And it's going to make us reevaluate all the other when played abilities that we see and that we have seen, just like we did with Thrawn with when defeated abilities. And then we have the Stinger Mantis, which is a 5-cost 4/6 Fringe Vehicle Transport. When played, you may deal 2 damage to an exhausted unit, which is cool. I don't think it's as cool as any of the other cards, but it's really interesting and I like it. And it also means that we might be getting, right? That's Cal Kestis' ship, I think. So we could be getting Cal Kestis, which I think would be really cool. So let's also talk about the creature subtype, because there were 3 cards that they kind of revealed that revolve around this creature sub theme. And I apologize for these screenshots. I know the last cards had my really terrible cropping job, but these ones are even worse because they didn't actually show these cards. They were like kind of shown in the trailer. We have Lothcat. It's a 2-cost 2 creature. We don't know the health of it, but I would imagine if I had to guess, it would be a 2-cost 2/2. And when played, when defeated, you get to exhaust a ground unit. And I think this card's really interesting because if you play it even on like turn 2, or if this is one of the cards that you bounce with Qui-Gon's ability, you get to bring it down, exhaust a ground unit, then when it's defeated, you get to exhaust another ground unit. If you play this on turn 2, you play it, you exhaust the ground unit. If you have initiative, you could defeat this unit and then exhaust the ground unit again. So you essentially can set a unit back 2 turns with 1 creature. I think this card's kind of cool and interesting. We need to see if there's something else behind this when defeated, and we need to see if it's got if it's not like a 2/1 or something. The card's interesting, especially because I'm really interested to see what these creatures subtype theme is. It'd be really cool if we get like a force sensitive creature unit. They did say everything is force sensitive, and we do know there are force sensitive creatures. So a force sensitive creature leader is so cool to think about. And then we have the Ravenous Rathtar. It's a something attack 5 health creature. If I had to guess, it kind of looks like a 5-cost. I don't know what attack or what creature synergies would make me want to run a 5 health vanilla creature at probably 5. But I want to see the rest of the card. But I'm interested. I think it could be cool, and I'm super interested in this creature subtype. And then the card that they did show is a 0-cost 1/1 creature, and it's the Porgs. I have played a game called Hearthstone, and in Hearthstone, they had a lot of cards similar to this. There was a 0-cost 1/1 neutral minion called the Wisp, and for a lot of the game's life, it was irrelevant. And I think for a lot of this game's life, the Porg might be irrelevant. Except there are certain times in the game's life where it mattered. And that was because there was, from one instance that I remember, there was a quest. I don't want to get too into it because it's not really related to this. But you had to do something, and then basically every one of your cards was a 5/5, no matter the cost, and they still had their text. So a lot of people would run a lot of 0-cost 1/1s because once you got the effect turned on that everything was a 5/5, then you would just throw down like 3 0 cost units, and now you have 3 0/5/5s in your deck, which are just super good. And the porgs also might matter immediately in Star Wars Unlimited because of Unity of Purpose, the card that I love. Everybody knows I love. Do not watch my green video. I love Unity of Purpose. It's an amazing card. You get to run porg. You could run porgs in that, and I think you run 3 of porgs in that because you could. This is another name, and depending on how many other units you have out, like if you just flip your leader in the deck that everybody's running, you play porg down, and it's essentially almost like a plus. I don't even know, like a +12/+12 or something, just by adding the extra porg there. I think porgs could be really good. Don't sleep on them. It's also good in this game because a lot of control strategies revolve around playing things like Power of the Dark Side, which makes you choose something. And if you throw down a porg, then you could just say like, okay, well, I'm going to defeat the porg and keep my good unit that I care about. These are also good in exploit decks, also maybe even good in a Palpatine deck, because you can play porg on turn 1, defeat it with Palpatine, draw a card, deal 1 damage to a unit, and then also play a 1-cost card. So I think porgs could be really interesting. 0-cost units always have the chance to break the game. Just keep that in mind. And we'll reevaluate this going forward. And now the next section here, I want to talk about predictions based on art that they've shown from either the Galactic Championship or stuff that was shown on stream. So the first thing I want to talk about here is they had this like diagonal cut shot of Mother Tolzin and Mace Windu. Now, they've done this twice in the past in their teaser trailers, and both of those times, it was 2 leaders like facing off. So this leads me to believe that we're going to get another Mace Windu leader and a Mother Tolzin leader. And this is why I think like the Knight trait might matter, because this is the head of the Knight sisters. A prediction here is that we're going to get a Mother Tolzin leader and a Mace Windu leader. We also have from the Galactic Championship this Mace Windu art that we haven't seen this art shown anywhere. I doubt that this is an alt art for the Mace Windu leader, and it could be an alternate art for the Party Crasher Mace Windu from set 1, but I'm kind of doubting that, so I think we might get a Mace Windu leader and another Mace Windu unit in this set. So that's another prediction that I have. Some more art that they showed is they have the scene of Palpatine manipulating Anakin, and they said this was a really crazy card, and it's probably a cunning villainy card. Like, let's be honest, this is a cunning scene and this is a villain scene, so it's also crazy, which means that it's probably going to be broken. We have a Sharut picture that was shown. So maybe we get another Sharut leader or Sharut unit. I think that would be really interesting. One of my good friends loves Sharut. Kylo Ren, we get another picture of him with his mask on, which is cool. So maybe we get a Kylo masked unit. We have Plo Koon that was shown, and he's specifically using the Force in his artwork. I'm wondering if this is one of the units that is Plo Koon's going to have an effect that's use the Force to get in a good effect. In their article that they posted online, they had this picture of like Ahsoka and Baylan crossing swords with Mother Tolzin and Savage and Yoda. Why I threw this on here is because obviously, you know, we're going to probably be getting an Ahsoka and a Baylan and a Yoda, but I wanted to make a prediction about the prestige arts. For Jump to Lightspeed, they had like you could put the 2 ships together and they made like a scene, right, of the 2 collective arts. My prediction here is the prestige arts might be like famous lightsaber battles between Force users if they make them. To think things like the famous Mustafar fight between Anakin and Obi-Wan, or the Luke Skywalker Vader in Emperor Palpatine's throne room could be really interesting. So keep that in mind. That's my prediction for what the prestige arts might be. And then one of the other things I want to talk about here, they showed the space whales, and they heavily hinted that these are going to be space units that are non-vehicles. And they specifically highlighted the fact that like you could DL-44 blaster a space whale. And depending on what these space whales do, and if they're like really strong units, it could be really cool to use all of the upgrades that say non-vehicle in space, which we haven't seen before, and it could bring a whole new element to the game. And then lastly, there are 2 arts from the Galactic Championship that I want to highlight here. We have this Vader art. Now, we've seen in the Galactic Championship the alternate art for the Set 1 Vader unit, and it's not this. And this doesn't look like a piloting alternate art. So this leads me to believe that we might be getting a Vader unit this set, which is not surprising. But the other prediction I want to make here is there's this Obi-Wan art in his clone armor. And every Obi-Wan we've seen, including this set, is either Obi-Wan as a Padawan in The Phantom Menace, Obi-Wan as the old man in A New Hope, and Obi-Wan as, like, I think it was more of an episode 2 Obi-Wan, where he's like a mentor to Anakin. But we don't have Obi-Wan in clone armor. And if we already have an Obi-Wan unit, I doubt they'll print 2 Obi-Wan units in the same set, which leads me to make a prediction. We are going to get an Obi-Wan Clone Wars era leader this set, which would be awesome. That is everything that I have for you today. That is everything that I can even predict or foresee that have been shown about Legends of the Force. I'm off to Denver to play in the sectional. So if you see me there, you know, I'm not that big of a creator in this space, but come say hi. I'm there to have fun. If I do poor in the main event, then, you know, I'll drop and play side events. I'm probably going to be doing draft side events and Twin Suns if I get there. So I'm going to be bringing a Twin Suns deck. If you're going to Denver and want to play Twin Suns with me, we can try and get a pod going and win some tickets and get some cool stuff off the prize wall. With that, that is everything I have for you. I hope you have a wonderful day, and see ya.